Well, hello everybody. Through this Radical Love series, we've been coming to you from different places around Lawrence, different neighborhoods, and today we're at iconic Allen Fieldhouse. Just behind us is the Booth Family Hall of Athletics, and just in front of us is the entrance into Allen Fieldhouse. And many of us love coming here and watching great basketball, and every year a new freshman class of students comes and enrolls at the University of Kansas with the hopes that the Jayhawks will be good in basketball, and every year they're not disappointed. For 14 years in a row now, the Jayhawks have won the Big 12 championship regular season, and that's an incredible accomplishment. You know, that's part of what makes Lawrence what it is University of Kansas. And it's clear that the university impacts our community in many ways. And one of the ways it impacts our community is it makes Lawrence and Douglas County kind of transient. You know, people are in and people are out. And as a pastor of Connect Church, I've noticed this over the 30 years. The number of people that we've had a chance to touch their lives for just a little bit, and then they've gone on. I think way back to my first year here, a young lady who came to the University of Kansas from Singapore. Her name was Suat Kian. And we're still social media friends, and I've watched her now get married and have a family of her own. And Swat was here for about a year and a half or 2 years, and she found the Lord while she was here and had a wonderful, wonderful experience, but then she was gone. And one of the challenges with that over the years is you start thinking, how much do I really want to invest in people?
Yes.
Because they're here and then they leave. I think sometimes people who come to the university, graduate students, postgraduate students, undergrads, even professors, you know, they're not always here for a real long time. So how do they get really connected? And I think that's an important part of what it means to think about radical love. How do we be incarnational, like I talked about on Sunday, this idea of staying in people's lives? You know, how do we do that with the additional challenge of sometimes being in a community like ours? Because I think it's important for us to figure out how to do that, Ben, in a place like Lawrence, Kansas.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely, and that's huge because, I mean, you've been here like forever,
yeah.
And my wife and I have been here just for a few years, and we've already just experienced that, just friendships that we've developed or people we started ministering to that just come and go, and that can be really challenging. And so as our groups, we're going to be talking about how do we do that in our context, in our culture, and of course the obvious place to look is, what did Jesus do?
Right, absolutely.
And we were just talking about yesterday how his active ministry that we have an account of only took place over 3 years.
Yeah.
But he was on mission. He was fully there when he was ministering during that time. And so specifically in our groups, we're going to be looking at the Gospel of John. And John begins in the first chapter with this prologue, which lays out just this beautiful explanation of who Jesus was. He was divine. He's been here. He's always been around. He's God. But in verse 14, it mentions that the Word, or Jesus, became flesh, and he made his dwelling among us. So Jesus, that's what incarnation means, that he took on flesh. He became human. He was with the disciples. He's with us when he was here. And the rest of the book of John are just examples from Jesus' life and ministry of it's all showing how that's true. It's explaining through his example how that's true, that he was God. We see that through the miracles and the fact, you know, just everything he did, but he was also fully human. And so we're picking up in chapter 4, where Jesus ministers to a woman at a well. And I love how in this chapter we see Jesus' humanness so clearly. Mm-hmm. It says that they stopped in this village, and it clearly says he was tired. He was exhausted. He didn't want to keep walking. And so the disciples kept going on and got food, and then it says that he was thirsty, and he didn't have what he needed to get water out of the well. So this Samaritan woman comes, and he asks from a genuine place of vulnerability, can I have some water?
Right.
And I think this is a very profound thing that we can miss when we talk about what does it mean for us to be incarnational?
Yeah.
Can we be honest with people? Can we be vulnerable?
Yeah.
And I think absolutely, it's necessary.
Yeah. And Jesus, like you said, in just 3 years on this earth, so he was very transitory. Like, he was just here for a little bit, and yet he found, as you said, ways to really be honest and vulnerable with people. And in this particular case, this person was a Samaritan, which was someone that Jews were supposed to hate. Jesus went out of his way actually to make sure he went through Samaria. Most people went around it, but Jesus went through it when he went from the south to the north. It was a woman who, in that culture, in that time, Jesus would have not had to stop and talk to. And the scripture says she had 5 husbands and was not married to the person she was living with. And when scholars read that, some scholars think that points to a woman who had sort of a shady background, maybe a loose lifestyle. Other scholars say it was more an indication of the fact that she was a victim of other people's sin and other people's power over her. But either way, we find a woman who is broken, a woman who is lonely, and Jesus becomes vulnerable around that person. He says, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, to someone who is in that situation. So there's a lot there for us to think about what it means for us to be incarnational. And what's really cool about it, when Jesus does that, he ministers to a person who's spiritually hungry. Whatever caused her to be broken, whether her own sins or others, what we know is she was spiritually hungry. And Jesus was able to reach out to her because he was intentionally incarnational. And that's what we need to be thinking about when we think about how to minister in our culture.
That's so good. And he wasn't scared of her situation.
Right.
In fact, he's the one that initiated that conversation.
Right.
He knew it beforehand, and he transitioned the conversation from this kind of general conversation about religion, and she's talking about our forefathers and water, and he sort of abruptly shifts it to her personal life.
Right.
He faces it head on, and not at all in a critical way, in a way where he's chastising her, but just was honest and faced it head on in order to be able to minister to her situation.
Yeah, absolutely. He was very present with her. Like, he was totally present in that situation and aware of what she was dealing with. And I think that's a key word when we think about what it means to be incarnational.
Yes, and it is so hard to do that in our modern life.
Yeah.
I'm sure all of us struggle with this. Even, Jesus was vulnerable, so I'm going to be vulnerable here if that's okay.
That's good.
And it was 2 days ago, and my mom was visiting, staying with us. She came from Iowa, and it was early in the morning. My wife Cody had already left for work, and we're sitting here on the couch. And to my left is my daughter Winnie, and then to the left of her is my mom. And we're just sitting there. We have toys out. We're playing with her. My mom and I are talking, and to my right was my laptop. And it happened just like in an instant where I thought, wait, there's something I need to do. I have a work thing I have to work on. And so I reached over, grabbed my laptop, put it on my lap, opened it up, and I literally had to just stop and consciously think, Ben, stop.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
This is important right here. This can wait. And so I was able to close it and set it aside. And in hindsight, when I was thinking about it, I was realizing that was a sacred moment with my family.
Right.
And I could have totally missed out on that. I didn't see that in the moment. And taking it further beyond just time with our family, although that's important, think of what are those sacred moments that we're missing out on when we're interacting with our neighbors or our coworkers. What are we missing by us just not being present?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, like, we're talking to our neighbor, but we're thinking about those emails we have to respond to.
Right.
We have to pick up the kids from school, and we're there, but we're not there.
We're not there. And that's part of what it means to be incarnational. That word incarnational is so big and theological, but I think at least one of the things it means, as you said, is to just be present. And here's the cool thing. You can do that in a transient culture. Like, you can be present in that moment at that time. So groups, we want you to keep talking about this. We've kind of introduced this conversation about Jesus being vulnerable and incarnational and present. And there's a lot more to figure out in the story of John 4, so your study guides will lead you and direct you. But what I think we discovered is that Jesus gives us a model of how to love our neighbors incarnationally. And the key phrase, I think, is learning to be present. Man, I know I struggle with that too with my family, and I'm always thinking about something, and the Lord's been talking to me about just being present in whatever moment it is. So groups, have at it, keep talking about it, and we'll sign off now and let you guys continue the conversation. Signing off from Allen Fieldhouse, back to your house.